Ahoy and welcome to Scarlet Lady. I'm bringing you to my first impressions of Lucky Lotus. If you're not aware of this, Scarlet Lady recently came out of a dry dock in which she had a glow up. And what happens, we got, thank you so much. And we have our first course already here, but Scarlet Lady just recently came out of a dry dock. And one of the many changes on the ship is what they did to Razzle Dazzle. Ahoy, sailors. I'm Christine Lozada. Welcome to the Virgin Voyages Tips podcast, an insider guide to navigating Virgin Voyages like a pro. You can find this on YouTube and every podcasting platform, but check the show notes. There's additional helpful information in there and a killer deal. So let's dive in. Razzle Dazzle first evolved from being a veggie forward. I mean, to be honest, it was vegan vegetarian, and then once Virgin Voyages actually launched, the marketing referred to this restaurant as being the veggie forward restaurant with tons of amazing menu items. One of which, my favorites, plenty of them were meat options. My favorite before used to be the pork schnitzel. And that menu has changed more times than any other menu I've seen on Virgin Voyages. I have seen Razzle Dazzle go through a lot of changes over the years. And so in today's podcast episode, I'm sharing with you my first impressions of the new Lucky Lotus. Oh, fire. Yum. As a quick background, if you're wondering why did Razzle Dazzle change? Why did they make it into a Asian restaurant? And this is speculation, but I have noticed that Virgin Voyages over the years, as they've tried to grow and appeal to more people, in particular more cruisers, they have gone more quote unquote mainstream. And there's still things about it, and we'll talk through it in my first impressions of the menu, in which they are making things pretty unique for Virgin Voyages. That is not for everybody, but at the same time, they are testing things. And so one of the things that they have tested, if you haven't checked it out, make sure you watch the Asian Night Market YouTube video I've put out. It's about their event that they happen called the Eat and Drink Festival, which happens every summer, but they turned every single food hall in the galley, and it was all kinds of dishes. But that whole event was wildly successful. I mean, I love the Asian market at sea. It was very difficult to try all of the things, but it was absolutely delicious. Total hit. And as a result of that, they have tried transforming Razzle Dazzle on Scarlet Lady only at this time. This is filmed in January 2025 into Lucky Lotus. And as you walk into Lucky Lotus, you immediately start to see the difference. And I was chatting with Jodina while I was at Richard's Rooftop during the sunset hour. And I was telling her, I was like, it's really difficult to explain what it looks like in Razzle Dazzle now if you've never been to Razzle Dazzle before. Because if I were to say it's more muted now, that makes it seem like this space is muted, which as you look around, absolutely not muted at all. But in comparison to what Razzle Dazzle used to be, it seems a little bit more demure, a little bit more mature, maybe is the right word. It looks a little bit more sophisticated than it used to look. Razzle Dazzle before was, I don't know, I kind of thought about it as this like bright restaurant that was welcoming, a casual spot. And I could imagine strolling into the Lucky Lotus Razzle Dazzle, either in a chic attire or in whatever, Virgin Voyages has come as you are. But I see it as a little bit more of an elevated experience now. It looks different in this space and in a much more muted and elevated and modern and grown up kind of way. So that was my first impression coming in. Ahoy, sailors. Quick announcement from Christine popping in to remind you that the show notes or the description of this podcast has a ton of helpful info that most sailors miss. And one thing that's in there is a killer deal. There is a reason why other travel agents book with us. And even if you've already booked your sailing, it takes just 2 steps and 10 seconds to get a price comparison with us. So check the description and let's get back to the episode. What I'm looking at right now is their back area, a space I've never sat at before as Razzle Dazzle, but now as Lucky Lotus, they have these high top booths, which are actually quite lovely to sit in. And I'm looking over at the bar, which has plenty of activity as they're making a really fun cocktail list. We're going to talk about the menu in just a second and first impressions of that. But this space is really nice, especially for me. I'm sailing solo for my 6th or 7th time, maybe 8th time on Virgin Voyages. The second thing I immediately noticed on the menu was just how lovely the cocktail list is. This was expected, but there are so many Asian-inspired flavors in the cocktails that they make for specifically Lucky Lotus. And if you're not aware of this, each of the different restaurants has a different cocktail list. Obviously, they can make you all the traditional cocktails, but there's generally a unique cocktail list and a unique wine list per menu or per restaurant. And so the ones on Lucky Lotus are super fun. I'll give you examples. One is the Dragon's Breath, currently today at $15 US. It's Sichuan peppercorn infused gin, dragon fruit puree, lemon juice, agave nectar, and Fee Brothers foam. I don't even know what to imagine. What a fun cocktail specific to here. I'm not a cocktail person. I will be drinking Moet in just a momentito. But what I'm having right now is they have a really lovely JoJo tea lineup. And as you can see, they have like a really lovely pot that they have it in. I'm letting mine steep for a little bit longer before I pour more, but they have a selection of oolong, jasmine cloud, a breakfast blend, as well as a green tea. So there's a nice tea selection as well. Because if you're not familiar with Asian food, a lot of it can be really salty. It's traditional to have a lot of soy sauce and salt in Asian cuisine. So you usually cut it with the tea. So I'm having a tea to start. And as I look at the menu, there's a couple things I wanted to point out. One is because, I'm new to this restaurant, it's my first time sitting down, I immediately gravitated toward what did they recommend on Sip and Savor? And if you're like, what's Sip and Savor? Sip and Savor is the opportunity for a sailor to be able to get, if you don't want to DIY, have them bring you the dishes they recommend with the paired drinks that they recommend. For me, I only get Sip and Savor at the times in which I'm like, oh wow, there's always a value for money anytime you're paying outside of what's lots of things are included on Virgin Voyages. And so as I look at the Sip and Savor, I'm like, ooh, what did they recommend for the starter? What did they recommend for the main? In other words, it's pointing toward the items that they are suggesting are the most popular ones. And so I looked at Sip and Savor first, and actually one of the items that was under the starters is something I ordered, which is the Peking duck bao buns, which is a nice appetizer size for 2 people. I could imagine Meatball eating probably 6 orders of that, if I'm completely honest. And don't forget, helpful tip, too many people complain to me about how they leave Virgin Voyages being starving. And I'm like, it's not possible, because you can order as many things as you want, just a lot of people don't realize it. So don't be that guy. I will say in the grand scheme of Peking duck bao buns, because my favorite bao buns are Momofuku. I lived in New York City for a long time. Obviously, David Chang, love his restaurants. But I honestly think this duck bun is delicious. But I would say the flavors are on point. And also they have the hoisin sauce in there. It's delicious. I'm actually really enjoying it. I know Meatball's going to love it as well. I will be on Scarlet Lady at least 3 more times over the next couple months. So I'm going to work my way through this menu. But I only ordered the bao buns. And then the only other thing that I ordered tonight, I wanted to try the treat yourself item first. I'm just genuinely curious about the lobster and king crab hot pot. Normally with hot pots, sometimes it can be a really big serving. I'm hoping it's not too large, but I ordered it with a side of white rice. You have the option of a side of pineapple shrimp fried rice, which is a very traditional Asian dish, or you can get regular white rice. My guess is going to have a lot of seafood flavors. I'm just going to want to have the rice to absorb it. So I'm super curious about the lobster and king crab hot pot. This treat yourself item. And if you're like, what's a treat yourself item? If I count it out right now, there are 6 main dishes that you can choose from. That is plenty. And all of these are fantastic, from a ribeye to a pork chop to noodles, all the things. A full fish is on here as well. Each of the restaurants at Virgin Voyages has 1 or 2 treat yourself items. The Wake, for example, has the seafood tower, also has the tomahawk. Let's come back in just a minute after I try a few more things. All right, fast forward like another hour later. I feel like I've been here. Well, I have been here for about 2 hours now. And I'm going to give you my very honest opinion. And I'm going to say 2 primary things. One is I'm not surprised that Virgin Voyages is doing something different and unique, but at the same time is like trying to do something different, but not too different. I'm so stoked to see another Asian restaurant on board. And I've dined at Gunbei before, in which people are experiencing Korean food for their very, very, very first time, that they're pointing to the grill and saying, what is that? And it's like, oh, that's the grill. That's where they'll cook the food for us. And they're looking at me like I have 3 heads or something. It's a really cool way for lots of people who've never experienced this type of thing to experience it. It's unique and different, especially in the cruising industry, but not too crazy different that it turns a lot of people off. And again, I've been saying this since day one. Virgin Voyages is not for everybody. And at the same time, I see them trying to appeal to more people than they did before. They try not to be exclusionary, but at the same time, I mean, let's be real, if they want to turn over a lot of profits and be able to truly capture the cruising customer, they can't be too out there. They need to be at some level kind of mainstream. I really enjoyed the ambiance in here. It's actually a really good fit for the style of restaurant. I actually really appreciated the more mellow decor than what you experience in the normal Razzle Dazzle restaurant. And the music has been kind of mixed. I mean, don't forget, Meatball is a DJ. And so I've been listening to the music, and they have a mix of like some Asian sounds as well as like some kind of mainstream music. And so it's been a little bit of a mix. It's a really nice atmosphere. I've been enjoying it. I actually really like, especially as a solo sailor, dining where I'm at right now versus in the main dining space, because sometimes it can feel too close when you're sitting right next to other people. I'll admit I didn't look closely enough, which is at the brunch menu. I am so excited for this brunch. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited for this brunch because I was worried that they were going to completely change over the Razzle Dazzle brunch menu and make it a Lucky Lotus Chinese inspired menu. And they actually didn't. They kept a lot of the same menu, but with some changes. I didn't notice it because I kind of glanced over it and was like, oh wow, it's like a lot of the same stuff. It's all of the same juices. It's all of the same sides. But there are 3 key items that have since changed now that it's Lucky Lotus for brunch. And so the 3 items, the wonton soup, so the kombucha and chicken wonton soup, this now replaces what used to be the gazpacho. The other change that's on here, and I tried it this morning, absolutely delicious, is the pan-roasted vegetable dumplings. Really beautiful presentation. I thought the sauce, which is a nice truffle soy dipping sauce, was a really nice add to it. Has like the proper glass noodles inside, some really nice veggies inside. I loved that, but that replaces what used to be the mushroom tartare. I was actually surprised about that. A lot of people loved the mushroom tartare. I'm not surprised that they replaced a vegetable dish with a vegetable dish, but there's one last item that they changed. And so under the main, there's now an option for stir-fried rice noodles, which has bok choy, snap peas, and crispy shallots. That now replaces what used to be the Impossible Burger. So the Impossible Burger is off the menu. I haven't met anyone that actually loved it, so I think it's a really good change. But I felt relieved. My normal brunch order starts with, and they walk around with the tray of pastries. I love the apple cruffin. I love to eat just the center of it. It's absolutely delicious. And then I love to actually get the salmon bowl, the everything salmon bowl, except I get it without salmon and with a side of the bacon. There's one thing you have to get when you're at Razzle Dazzle if you eat bacon. It's the bacon. I absolutely love that item. I also admit that I miss the old Razzle Dazzle brunch menu. I miss the tots. Those tots were amazing. There's a lot of things I miss, but that was a change. Razzle Dazzle brunch at Lucky Lotus. I have to interrupt because I've come back to Razzle Dazzle because I'm going to be totally honest. I don't like to talk about things unless I've kind of experienced them at least once. I don't feel like I can really give an opinion. You know, you can't knock something the very first time you tried it. Definitely can't knock something if you've never tried it. But I wanted to share 2 things. The first one, and a lot of people don't notice this, on the original menu of Razzle Dazzle, they talk about the story behind Razzle Dazzle. And if you are able to come to the restaurant at a moment in which they are less busy, which is more or less never, the waiter or waitress, the crew, will give you kind of more of a background. And especially if you ask for it, they will absolutely give it to you. But I wanted to read this to you in case you haven't seen it before. So the Razzle Dazzle, during World War I, attempts to camouflage ships at sea had failed, as the appearance of the sea and sky are always changing. British artist and naval officer Norman Wilkinson promoted a new camouflage scheme. Instead of trying to conceal the ship, it simply broke up its lines and made it more difficult for the U-boat captain to determine the ship's course. This camouflage scheme was referred to as Razzle Dazzle. And so what's interesting about this story is it's the reason why you see the very kind of loud, outgoing decor that they previously had at Razzle Dazzle that hasn't completely gone away. You'll see it kind of more subtle put throughout the restaurant, right? On the tops of the tables or on some of the art that's around, for example, but it's more muted, more subdued than what it looked like before. And so that story of Razzle Dazzle gives you the kind of background because, as someone who didn't realize, and I am exactly this person, I thought Razzle Dazzle was just like a fun name that was outgoing. It's like, Razzle Dazzle, like it's got to be something outgoing and fun, right? That was my assumption, but there's actually a story behind it. Oh, we have fish coming. Yes. Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The pineapple shrimp.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much.
Bon appetit.
Thank you. And the second thing I wanted to share with you is one that maybe the right way to say it is I was a little bit worried about, which is the brunch menu. I was like, ooh, are they going to do Asian-inspired Lucky Lotus dinner and Asian-inspired brunch? Which honestly, if they did do that, I would hope it would be some kind of dim sum cart experience. But let's be real, the average cruiser is probably not going to like that. I am currently sitting in front of one of the most popular dishes to order on the menu. And I want to read it correctly for you, so let me just grab that. So this is the blossoming sweet and sour fish. And to be honest, this isn't, when you look at the sip and savor menu, this is not one of the items that they put on there. So the blossoming sweet and sour fish is green peas and toasted pine nut is the way it's described. Looks super delicious. I also ordered it. So last time I had the hot pot, I got it with the regular white rice, but tonight I got the pineapple fried rice. It has really nice pieces of shrimp in here, which I'm actually really excited to dig in. I'm starving, so I'm leaving you. And it was a really cool experience. Again, I'm excited to dive into more. Those are my first impressions. I'm Christine Lozada. Ooh, Lucky Lotus. This has been another episode of Virgin Voyages Tips Podcast. If it was helpful, please share it with somebody. And we want you to book your sailing with us. We'd love to help you set sail because we're here for you every step of the way. A reminder to check the show notes. Things on Virgin Voyages changes all the time, and you'll find more helpful links and resources in the description. We'll see you in the next episode.